Hi guys, this is the Horizon Hobby Hangar 9 Hawk. This is from the same series as the MB, which actually we've also got the MB. So first of all, this is a big model. It's a big jump up from the MB. It does split. The fuselage has got a join in it just here, and it can be built so that that can be taken apart. It's got a fully featured cockpit, 2 pilots in it. Although somebody will tell me it's a pilot and a navigator probably. And this is available in the UK through Logic RC outputs. So this will be kitted out with Spectrum radio. So this will use the IX20 SE, and we'll be using the Synapse PowerSafe receiver and Theta servos. So these Theta 799s, something new. We've not used these before, but been very impressed with how smooth they are. I originally was going to put 2 in the elevators, and yeah, I like them so much I've put them throughout the whole plane. So cockpit off, same sort of construction, carbon and ply, very much the same as the MB. Double catches for the canopy, and the same, some more double catches for this rear section which comes off. It has a removable fin, and we've just started kitting this out, so we've put the plugs in for the elevators, and the wiring harness has been put through, so we've got some connectors to come through here. Slight pain here is there's not really much room in here to tuck the wires up, but it's being picky. So here we've got one of the wings. So this isn't going to be a build thread as such, but just showing some of the problems that I've had, some of the little tweaks that I've done, which might help you out. So the wing is same sort of construction. Feels pretty solid. We've got undercarriage mounts. I've got aluminium reinforcement plates in there as well, so it looks pretty good. The 2 servo hatches and the hinges, which you'll really love. So quick flick through the manual, and I'll just remember some of the points that I found caught me out a little bit. So it says here about cutting out the holes for the ailerons. So you chop the holes out for the ailerons, but you also have to cut down lower. It is pre-cut out for you, just cut the covering out, but it wasn't immediately obvious. The hinging. So I took the hinges apart, cleaned them up a little bit, took some of the plastic flashing off, and then they were all glued in with epoxy. So the trick on the hinges is to put a little bit of thick oil or some grease over the actual hinge knuckle itself, roughen up the pins, just use a round drum on a Dremel, roughen up the pins, and then epoxy them in with 30-minute epoxy, working quite quickly and cleaning any excess off as you go with some IPA alcohol. Once it's dried, you can then just crack them and just pick off any excess glue that's on the hinge. Because it's been oiled, it will come free quite quickly. And then you do the same for the flaps. Tape the flaps on the corners, get them nice and flat so that they lie nice, and also eye down the actual hinge, make sure that they're actually in line so that they move nice and free as that does. So the first bit was the aileron installation, which actually is the main problem I had, and actually is mainly the only problem I've had so far. If you use the top hole here in the servo horn, and you put the servo in the way that it says in the manual, which is to have the output horn at the front, this linkage pretty much goes straight through this reinforcing section where the servo is. Yeah, I didn't kind of like that, so I've flipped the servo 180 degrees. I had to put a 1mm packer under the servo there, but that still clears the cover. and then I've used a shorter 100mm centre to centre arm, and then on the lower hole. So there's no bolt in there at the moment, but when that's in, you get a nice straight run. So the geometry looks pretty good, and that completely fixes the problem of it fouling through here. So I'm using a Pilot RC 0.8 inch horn, which if you try and use a 1 inch horn and then use the next hole in, you'll have to cut the horn down because the bottom of the horn will catch the skin of the upper wing. And that's kind of it. Everything is built as the instructions. Other than that, you attach this linkage rod to the servo. I've Loctited all of these, tightened them all up, and then you can wiggle the rod in through the hole and drop the servo in and screw the servo down as it says in the instructions. So pretty straightforward, but initially you think, how am I going to get the rod in there and get it all in, but it will wiggle through. So the flap, yeah, I think that's all pretty straightforward on there. Yeah, so the flaps are exactly the same. Just follow the instructions for the flap. That works absolutely perfect. The geometry all lines up absolutely fine. So no problems there. The lights, I used the uni lights. So they've been glued in. Wires have been run down through the wing. There is some wire guides that I've glued on and cable tied to keep the wires out of the way of the servo. You can just see on that one there, there is a wire guide and the cables are clipped in. Then all the cables are all run out here where we're going to have some plugs on there. Okay, so next up is the elevators. I haven't tackled the gear doors and the undercarriage yet. So jump to the elevators. Elevators are pretty much the same as each other, obviously left and right, and the fin is also pretty much the same. So you flick the grommets the opposite way around the servo, because the servo pushes in from the bottom. Don't think you're going to see that very well, but yeah. So servo pushes in from the bottom. Just follow the instructions, pretty straightforward. So glue the horns in, clean all up with some IPA alcohol, and glue the hinges in, same as the ailerons. So again, bit of oil on the hinge, roughen up the pegs, and then glue them in with 30-minute epoxy. Crack them off when they're dry, pick out the little bits, and it should be a nice, clean, free hinge. Rod lengths, everything's all exactly as the instructions. That part's totally fine. It was only the ailerons where I had a bit of an issue. That's the same for the other half, same for the fin. So a little bit more about the componentry we're using on this. So we're going to go with the Kingtech K180 G5. Really like the simplicity of the Kingtech products. Super simple. All the valves are inside, so it makes installation very, very clean and neat. We use the Kingtech air trap with it. It's got a 3D printed mount from RC 3D Print. Keeps it at the right sort of angle. Powerbox smoke pump, so we'll be putting smoke on it. And as I said, the Theta servos. So the Theta 799s, 48 kilos, super smooth, and it's programmable, so I can zero the 0 point on the programmer, so I don't have to use the servo centers on the radio, which makes setup much nicer. And we switched out the clunk, so our friends are using a bag tank on this from FCT. Model lends itself to that pretty well, but we're going up for a conventional setup on there using the original tank, the Kingtech UAT. But yeah, I didn't really like the standard clunk, the big square edge on there, and also the tank is very thin, it's very light. So this one's got O-rings on it, so this rolls across the bottom of the tank on the O-rings. It's much nicer, and that should pick up every last drop. So that's from Flight Composite Tech, FCT. They make some really nice products, and he's doing a bag tank for this model, so he'll be doing bag tank for the main fuel tank and also for the smoke as well. So yeah, that's all the components. So that's it for this video. Gives you an idea of where we've got to just so far with the wings and the tail, and we'll crack on with the fuselage next.